Hello, welcome back to another week of the European Tour picks and bets. Skylar Hoke here with you. Tom Jacobs, how we doing?
Oh, I'm great. I'm feeling fresh. I've had the evening off, so I've just been you know, carefully waiting for you guys. And yeah, here we go.
So
Congratulations on your big win yesterday. Not Euro Tour related, of course, but still, money's money, right?
it's true. Open Championship, so it had a little Euro flavor to it. You know, the ladies went well yesterday. That was, in my opinion, the event of the week. I mean, ongoing right now, the Northern Trust finish, where we have Rom being chased by Cam and Tony Finau. But man, the Sunday at Carnoustie was quite electric. So enjoyed seeing that one, and thankfully had the right combination. So that was a fun one. Last week on the European Tour was something where I was nowhere near the leaderboard. However, it just felt we had the right process. It was bombers. It was those that do well, excel off the tee, that ended up being right in the mix, one, two, three, but ultimately not the guys we selected.
Yeah, I mean, like Kruijswijk was there. He was close, wasn't he? Inside seventh place, and Daniel Young. I mean, like he kept getting himself into places, and he was 1,000 to 1 over here. So I was getting quite excited. Backed him in play again at 250 to 1. I was like, come on, you can do it. Like he'd get up there and then he just double bogey, get up there, double bogey. Schwan Kim was the same, and it just kept happening. And it was, I think it was a really good golf course actually. I think I was really impressed, and you kind of see the finish. The back nine was pretty electric. I mean, at one point it was a four-way tie for the lead. Henrik Stenson got himself into there with a monster putt. The lead kept changing hands, and there'd be a lot of focus on Tapio Buchanan throwing it away, and rightly so. But all I would say is that that's kind of the first time he's really been in that kind of position at this level. He's been around for a long time, over 100 tournaments, or 90 tournaments, I think it is. But this is the first real time it's actually been his to lose. Like he had the lead overnight,
Yep.
he had a chance to win going into the last two holes, and he goes bogey, double bogey, and that can happen to anyone, right? That could literally happen to the best player in the world. It does happen to the best player in the world quite often.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and Johannes Veerman just had the opportunity to par in. So will he get a chance to par in the next time he wins the tournament? Probably not. So yeah, it was pretty exciting. Tough to see for Paul Cannon backers, I guess. We weren't one of those, so it wasn't a major issue for me. But it was cool. It was really cool. Like a lot of lead changes. Like you say, I think we had the right formula, just not the right players. So I think there's going to be a similar theme this week with hopefully different results.
Yes. Amen. Amen. And it was, I really like Sean Crocker too. I think Crocker we'll talk about today. The way he strikes the ball, it's perfect setup for the course. You hope that putting turns. I mean, Veerman is somebody we've been rooting on and cheering for stateside here. I mean, that
How many
leaderboard was
times?
littered
Yeah.
for sure. That was three of them, three of the top four that were Americans,
Mm.
right? And Veerman, Crocker, and Paul Peterson, who played well too. So that was interesting. But you also talk about the 18-hole mishaps, or kind of down the stretch. We saw it in three different events, and we might see it again at the Northern Trust here. It could be a 4 for 4. You see that Tapio struggle down the stretch there. You see Madsen skull one out of the bunker on 18, leaving it up, for an easy par for Norquist. And then, unfortunately, I guess in one sense, Aaron Rai didn't capitalize on the Corn Ferry Tour for a victory, but we have three of our young European Tour guys that have now locked up cards for the next year on the PGA Tour in Aaron Rai, Matthias Schwab, and our guy Lucas Herbert.
Yeah, I mean, how much money are people going to leave on Matthias Schwab this year? I mean, just chucking it away every time he sits there in fifth in approach and 10th in driving or whatever. But no, in all seriousness, it's great to see those three guys get the PGA Tour cards. I felt like
Yes.
Lucas Herbert, we kind of penciled in as someone that was going to do that anyway, but certainly a big bonus for Aaron Ryan and Schwab there. And there's a couple of chances coming up now for other guys to do it as well. Tom Lewis was up there, as he has done in the past as well. So, yeah, I think it's been a really exciting time, and as we said last week, and I've kind of pointed out in tweets and stuff over last week or so, is the European Tour schedule now is hot from now on. We've got some really good events coming up right before the Ryder Cup, and after as well. So it's a really good time to be into the European Tour side of things.
Yep. Amen. And I think that's a perfect segue into the Omega European Masters. Arguably the greatest views on the European
Oh,
Tour. Crans Sur-Sierre is just beautiful.
yeah, I mean, you could, yeah, a bit like Cran sur-Sierre. It's amazing.
I put it on a T for you. I was waiting there. So yeah, pronunciations, when they get these hyphens in the course name, that's just a little too much for me. But
I feel like it's
Switzerland,
tomato. It's all the same thing, isn't it?
yes. So it's one of these courses played at severe elevation, one that I guess I would say has been capitalized in multiple type of I guess course fits or way you're attacking it. We've seen a playoff with Andres Romero and Rory McIlroy in the same 5-man playoff, with Sebastian Soderberg and Callie Samoya, who all have different styles of games, I
Yeah.
feel like. We've seen Matthew Fitzpatrick be a 2-time winner here. So I think maybe the best recipe would probably be some good wedges and a really good short game for the week if you had to dial it in. But also some of the bombers or really, really good ball strikers have struck it well enough to put themselves in contention if they can putt. You do have to putt it here, not like last week in the sense where you could be in the top 3 and lose strokes on the green like Sean Crocker did. He legit had one of the best ball striking performances of the entire year last week. Unfortunately, just did not cooperate on the putter. But that's kind of my initial look. So it does leave kind of a long list of golfers that are intrigued on it. It wasn't easy to narrow it down into 6 selections.
I mean, look, you sent me a long list earlier. I sent you a longer list, and just said the words help. And it's interesting you say about the putting, because for me, I kind of looked at it and looked back at the last couple of years and felt like you didn't necessarily have to putt lights out to win it. You could kind of contend. I think the winners eventually did because of their putting was the difference. And I think there's a lot of pass saves and putting saves, and you'll gain strokes just through those, because I think a lot of people have missed these small greens. And like you said, I actually think around the green would actually be quite a bit more important this week, and because the greens are so small. But like you say, that there is no real course fit. I'd say there's a couple of correlating courses in terms of Kenya. Is somewhere that everyone kind of looks at. Hong Kong as well. There's some pointers there. You look at the winners list. I think Lorenzo Gagli has played well in Kenya. Samoy has played well in Kenya. Scott Hend has played well there and Hong Kong. He's a winner over there. So is Wade Ormsby. Matthew Fitzpatrick is second in Hong Kong. So there's a lot of pointers there, and you can go through the list. And Miguel Angel Jimenez is a multiple winner at both. So it's not multiple winner, but he's played well at both. And there is those kind of pointers, but I do think anyone can turn up. Like Adrian House played really well in his debut. Kelly Samoy played really well in his debut. A guy that I'm going to take off from first is making his debut. Rory McIlroy has played very, very well here, who you wouldn't compare to a Richie Ramsey, for example. There's such different spectrums, and it has changed. Of course, it's changed quite dramatically over the last sort of 4 or 5 years with renovations and stuff. So I would say that you do need to kind of look at more recent results as opposed to the whole form as a whole, because people like Bradley Dredge is someone that made my shortlist. And then when you look, he's been pretty bad here for the last few years. So try not to get too caught up in old form, or you'll end up back in Jimenez. So, and kind of enough rambling there. I think, like you say, just to kind of really stick up your point that anyone can win this week in terms of fit.
Yep. 100%. And I guess that kind of leans on a price value standpoint and where you end up backing guys relative to where they're priced at. And this field is interesting because we see the odds on favorite be 25-1. I guess odds on is the wrong word to use there. The lowest odds, the favorite in the field would be 25-1. Bernd Wiesberger, which we saw him as a favorite not too long ago, I think 16s, 18s. So we see a stronger field in the sense of more quantity of decent golfers, but a little bit deeper when it comes to those top guys, which is nice. That's fun to see. So, for me, I'm going to wait till the 30s to make my selection, but I know you said Wiesberger was kind of somebody that stuck out a little bit to you, even at that number.
Yeah, I mean, look, he doesn't play the course as well as you'd expect, but he has got a top 10 finish here. His irons are great. His short game's good when he's on form, and he's one of the most reliable players in this field. So I was kind of surprised to see him as a 25-1 favorite early on. At first I kind of thought he was going to be kind of 16, 18-1 again, and that would have been absolutely fine. I wouldn't have bet him, and I decided still not to bet him because I think even in this fine run of form where he's been hitting the irons really, really well, he hasn't got the job done since that earlier victory. So, and he's done a lot of winning over the past couple of years again. So eventually you have to sort of draw a line. So my first selection came with kind of Justin Harding, and he's kind of been backed into a shorter price. I mean, I think he's sort of opened up at kind of 35 and 40 to 1 in places. And he's gone down to kind of like 28 and 33s. But I still really like him. Like he's just been ultra reliable. I mean, I kind of put it up a couple of times this season. He's won in Kenya, and he could have won the following week. If you remember, when they were back to back on that golf course, he had 2 chances there. He's also been second. So although he hasn't played the golf course, he went to Valderrama last year, which is a notoriously difficult golf course, which is a massive course horse event, and finished tied third in his debut. If he can do similar here, which demands a similar kind of skill set, and there is crossover in form, I think that he could be a really good chance here.
Yeah, and I guess ultimately I think I ended up, there's 3 of them to me that kind of stood out in this shorter range with, I guess, correlative courses and trending-ish forms. Harding is absolutely one. I think Callie Samoya was going to be somebody who's going to check a lot of boxes for a lot of people. Really good tee to green his last time out. Somebody who obviously snuck into that playoff last time we saw this course, and just a little bit longer than what you'd anticipate, kind of in that awkward range. But I think it's pretty inevitable who my selection is going to be. And Tom, you've led me in quite properly. You mentioned Karen Country Club. Do you recall who won at that golf course?
Just this, it's a tough, guess. He's back in the field after a little while now. He's the Italian stallion, and it's Guido Migliozzi, and I can't put you off. I cannot do it. I mean, I don't know why I try and do it, because it wouldn't happen anyway. I could have put a PSA out earlier on Twitter and said Sky's going to pick Guido Migliozzi. But it's for good reason, right?
Yeah, it's, we haven't seen him since the Olympics, and he kind of teetered into the Olympics off of that miscut on the number at the Open Championship after his strong run of recent golf. It is, I guess, the corollaries to it, the formulating of his game, which has been a really tidy short game recently, which is, strong and what's needed here. Like we mentioned, it does seem like, again, 35 to 1, I think, is the best number I've seen. If you just kind of ultimately, you could probably pick 2 of those 3. I mean, if you want to go really heavy in the range, similar to how we bet our cards last week, I really like all those 3. So it's just kind of picking, kind of straws for me. But ultimately, Guido always has a neck above the rest of the field when it comes to my betting cards. So I do think it's going to be nice to see him back. And next week is a big one for him, being the Italian Open. So we got to find some form here, Guido, because that is the Ryder Cup course next week. So let's get going with it.
And there is a concern that he kind of has one eye on next week, but I think that's a little bit of not a lazy narrative, but it's kind of like easy to suggest, like if he plays a little bit poorer than we expected this week, it's going to be like, right, well, he's ready for next week. Whereas if he plays really well, he's galvanized by next week. He wants to find form. So it doesn't really matter at the end of the day. Like he's got that win at Kenya. He's had a 12th in Kenya as well. And he's got that top 6 at Valderrama, where you wouldn't necessarily expect him to succeed. So if that's any pointer to it, like I kind of suggested with Harding, then that's, I'm only going to encourage you further. So there's going to be losing some of that, $5,000 on Guido Migliozzi.
Hey, it's fair, man. It's just part of a donation. He'll win it back for us at the end of the year. We'll be there with it. We're already in the green. We're plenty in the green this year. So ready for him to get a nice W with it. But you roll into the mid-range here next. And I guess one golfer I want to make sure he's not priced up in a lot of the odds boards, but I haven't seen an official withdraw. Is Erik van Rooyen going to be playing this week? I can't imagine he makes it over in time.
Well, if he keeps doing what he's doing in the final round here, then he might get on an earlier flight. But no, I think it's probably safe to pull him out. But he would be a great selection if he can somehow make his way over.
Yeah, DraftKings did put him as the highest priced golfer for the week. So I don't expect it to be there. But if I do remember correctly, when Rory came and played in the playoff, it might have been a Monday finish, or he was in the thick of it. And it might have even won the week before he came over there and got in on Tuesday afternoon and showed up and somehow still played incredibly well, like Rory did that entire year. But let's transition to the mid-range. We've mentioned Sean Crocker off the top. We mentioned that ball striking. I think you are willing to go back to the well with the young American.
I'm going to do it, and it's going to be contradictory to what you said at the start about being important to putt. I personally think you can at least contend back to back with a not a bad putting week, because no one wins golf events with a bad putting week. But I think if he can, he was 35th, I think, around the greens last week, but he gained over 10 strokes with his irons last week, and he was tee to green was just immaculate, fifth off the tee. You know, and this is, this is not new. Like, this is what Sean Crocker does. Like, if his caddy putted for him, he would win. So, it's not like it suddenly flips a switch and we should all be betting on him. It's believing in the ability that he can do it. Veerman won last week. Do you buy into the inspiration side of things? Maybe, but more importantly, I do think eventually his passing is going to, like Sam Horsfield talks about. I think you mentioned it previously before on a Q&A. He kind of said that Sean Crocker is the best ball striker he's ever seen, which is a ridiculous statement considering some of the players that he would have played with. So, you know, eventually these guys have got to figure it out. I think that yesterday was a really good experience. He made 4 birdies in a row, I think it was, between
Yep.
9 and 12. Right in the heat of the battle, took the lead, eventually fell away. But, I think that he would have taken huge confidence from that. And I'm willing just to see if it lasts one more week. He had a top 10, I think it was, in Hong Kong, which is a correlative course. So, yeah, I like his chances.
Yeah, I think that's the best Sunday I can remember from Crocker. Didn't lose it, didn't blow up, didn't, he played well, just didn't make the putts that you really needed to do. But yeah, I mean, like you mentioned, his ball striking, I mean, he was a full 4 strokes better than anyone else, I think, in the field who's teeing it up this week. I mean, he was just incredible from that standpoint. When it gets to my card, I think this area is a little different. I guess I think there's one big misprice, and there's another golfer I think is trending. One, I'd rather just knock out while the price, he's probably got a sea of blue next to his name, because we mentioned our friend Ben Coley, who's also on this golfer and on a hot run. I struggle with this one. Kruwich,
I call
Yucks.
him, I call him Jats Krojcevic, and I have no idea if that's correct or not. So let's just go with yours, because then you could be wrong.
Okay, well, I always, think about him and Darren Fickard, or however Jason wants to spell that. Have a good week off, Jason. But if you look at Jock's recent form, I mean, a 7th, 11th, and a 10th, not these last 3 events have been better than some of the, Canary Islands ones where we saw some lower talent really contend for victory. But, in my opinion, those 3 finishes in a row, what he's done from a strokes gained total perspective, leading the European Tour in it, he's just not deserving of a 66-1 in this field. He's doing everything from a tee to green standpoint. He's been just fine, primarily with the irons. And then you mix that with a decent short game, a really good putter, kind of combining around the green short game. He's still up there in this field. It's just kind of a perfect, I think, balance of it with a phenomenal number. I mean, that stood out like a sore thumb, in my opinion.
I think last week, didn't we? I mean, I did ultimately select him, but I was
He
very
was
much like,
28.
yeah, the price was on the edge, and I think that kind of put you off, and it put a lot of other people off. But I kind of stuck with him because I believe that the improvement has been so much that it's kind of been not underrated, but just missed a little bit. And now I think it's gone the other way. You've got a couple of really big players in the mix, and suddenly you can't win again. And it's like this range is actually really, really exciting. I mean, I think your Krojcevic is. I mean, we were saying he's a leader in the scoring average on the European Tour. He's just all round brilliant at most things, or at least steady in all areas, which is something you want for this area of the game. But this area, I mean, you've got Masahiro Kawamura, who should, I think he's played Hong Kong well before. Mike Lorenzo Vera, I don't know if he's pulled out. He seems to be dropped off some of the boards, but he is playing some good golf. Well, especially at this golf course, he plays some good golf. He hasn't played great golf recently, but this area is a really kind of. I looked at Marcus Armitage, who's 20th here on
Me
Dead.
too. Yep.
It's a really tough range. I think on DraftKings, this is where you can differentiate yourself with a lot of names. Jimmy Donaldson, John Catlin, I think could go well here, although I don't really have the evidence to suggest that would happen. I would be wary on Henrik Stenson because I thought Henrik Stenson was a really good bet last week. Didn't ultimately go for him because I didn't think he could do it the way that how far he's been off, and luckily, thank God, he lost. But then when I looked at, I mean, I put a newsletter out this morning, and you looked at his statistics, and it was all powered by short game. Like
Mm-hmm.
I think he made 6 strokes on the green. So, you know, the ball striking still wasn't there. And if ball striking Henrik Stenson comes back, then the rest of the field's got to kind of worry. But that was his first top 10 since winning the Hero World Challenge in 2019. You've got to go back to this time 2 years ago in 2019 for the last time he actually made an official top 10. So that is a hell of a slump.
Yeah. 100%. That's good. And I think it's a strong plug actually as well for you on your newsletter that you're launching. Give us a little overview of what you're going to be doing.
Yeah, so what I wanted to do is kind of have, as, you know, because we don't want to spend the whole of this show recapping what happened last week. And I think for me, it's kind of nice to just put a short summary of what happened, maybe just on the Saturday and Sunday, because I think what happens on Thursday and Friday isn't the biggest thing. And I just put the top 10 in each strokes gained statistic. I put a few winners and losers. So for last week, for example, I put Sam Horsfield in the losers category. Felt really harsh, but it felt like he's just given away another Friday. It was poor on the Sunday, in contention as well, 4 strokes back. So just little things like that. It just gives me a time to point out who I think is trending. And the name that we're both going to be on this week was in that list. So I think we'll go on and talk about him.
Yeah, James Morrison would be that name, and Morrison I think makes his hay really being a phenomenal putter. That short game that he carries is something that's top 25 percentile, I would say, if not higher in this field. If you look at it kind of stretching out from a longer, I always get him mixed up with Jonathan Caldwell is the one that just maybe the Jays kind of get me, but both of them actually have really good short games. If you look at him from around the green plus strokes gained putting, Morrison is averaging right about a half a stroke per round being gained. And back-to-back events, he has been ball striking incredibly well. So that's kind of the combination that I love to see. You look at it, tee to green, he was 2.27 at the Kazoo, 2.4 at the Hero. If you look at the ball striking specifically, 1.75 and 1.93 per round on those numbers. Second place finish being the best finish of those 2 weeks. But yeah, I think that's a perfect combination. A trending ball striker who's a really, really good short game specialist. It's like the best of both worlds. You find him at a decent number, 60s, maybe you get a little bit longer. But yeah, I think it's something where can take advantage of his trending game and kind of hopefully hit the box.
Well, the thing is for me as well, which I really liked, is everything you just said, right? Is that when you see a player like him, who is a multiple tour winner, he's been around for a long time, but he has won multiple times on the European Tour, starts to ball strike as well as his key area of the game, which is a short game. A bit like when we talked about with Schwan Kim when he started ball striking, eventually it didn't lead to a win, but I think Morrison is more built to take advantage of it, whereas Schwan Kim's still got things to figure out. But he's inconsistent over his career, but when he gets in the hunt, I think he's really, really good. He was actually pretty unfortunate not to win the Hero Open in the end. He made a real late charge. A 13th the following week was a big pickup, but you even go back to the third at the Scandinavian Mix, 17th for the Irish Open was a big finish as well, 21st at the British Masters. He's been very solid for 2 or 3 months now, and that's a long time to sustain form on the European Tour. And when I looked at his course form, you looked at the first 4 times he came to the golf course, he missed a cut. The next 5 times he's made every cut, and his best finish was tied 18th. But the thing I like to look at, as we've said before, is going sort of round by round. And when you look, he's been in and around the top 10 quite a lot. I think he's only been in the top sort of 5 once, maybe after a round, but he's just been hovering around that top 10 mark, and eventually if he comes into the way that he's playing this week, which is not usual for him to be peaking at this time of year, that I think is really just a great combination. I think, he's an 18th place finish here. Loves Valderrama and Spain. He's played very, very well in general. He plays sort of like the Wentworth. He's played well. He's at top 10. So everything, 11th and 7th his last 2 weeks in the strokes gained approach. Just really, really like everything James Morrison is doing.
100%. 100%. I agree with you on that. If you are more of a listener via audio podcast version, make sure you take the time to subscribe to us on Daily Fantasy Sports Picks and Bets, The Mix. You can find our show as well as the plethora of shows across Mayo Media Network, who covers just about any sport under the sun, especially as we're gearing up for football season right now. It's a perfect time to make sure you subscribe and give us a review on there. I am looking over the PGA leaderboard over my shoulder here, and Tony Finau has found himself in the lead. I believe he might even be solo. Did Rom birdie or is it? Yeah. So, or bogey, Rom bogeyed. So Tony is solo at 20 under here. I'll pick
I'm
up the
trying.
pace.
I'm trying not to go,
Yes.
but it is happening. And you know when you get that big exciting "it's happening" gif, it is
Yes.
happening. So
Yes.
let's not rush things. But I maybe just
Maybe this is good luck. Maybe good luck here
maybe
for us.
yeah.
I have a trio of bets at 100 to 1 for me. So I think we're going to kind of run through these ones and then we'll do our DraftKings hot or not, in or out, kind of style for what we're going to be playing this week. For me, the first one that I will be selecting is somebody who lost out in the playoff, Matthew Fitzpatrick, here 2 times ago when it was played, this event. A golfer I refer to as the Man Rocket, actually, is kind of my original name for him because he's got a stunning jaw. He's a good looking gentleman. And he's found his form recently. Lucas Bjerregaard might be back. You were early on him, Tom. You were kind of watching that form coming. I think his game actually recently has evolved into taking advantage around the green, as especially his putter has carried these finishes recently. But he's somebody I think that if you look beyond what has just been the results, his name has flashed on leaderboards often around the last probably 6 weeks, I would dare say. If we kind of look into what the old prototypical Lucas Bjerregaard was, he was made for this course where he could really, really strike it. He was one of those that, attacked this course better than anybody else and was able to do it without the putter cooperating and ultimately just fell short by a stroke. But hundreds to 1 still on him. His off the tee is really what's hindered him. But I think this might be a week where it's not something you really have to be all that exceptional off the tee. It's approach, around the green, strokes gained, putting kind of combined. And Bjerregaard has been one of the better ones in those 3 statistics recently.
And I actually think because Bjerregaard is at that, you said we've got 2 ends of the spectrum. You had like the Rory McIlroy and the Romero that you made kind of the point of, and he'd very much be at the Rory McIlroy side of things, Sam Horsford side of the Howard to attack the golf course. But it may benefit him to rein it in. And his driver is off the world at times at the moment, which is what's been kind of really holding him back. But what I really liked about it, yes, he's got that 9th place finish and then the playoff loss to Matthew Fitzpatrick, but he was 28th here in 2019 when he was really, really out of sorts. And, he was 12th after the first and second round and, lost it a little bit over the weekend. But it just goes to show to me there's just a massive amount of comfortability. And like you say, he is building a bit of a game around the greens and his wedge game's good. It's really, really good. So, you don't go toe to toe with Tiger Woods in match play if you can't do things. So, yeah, I mean, like you say, I was fairly early, and I think what helped is that there was no strokes gain data at that ISPS hander, so it was kind of hidden from people, and you had to guess. I was virtually guessing on what he'd done that week and hoping it wasn't just luck. So yeah, I think he is back, and I think that 100 to 1 is generous.
Yeah, I agree. I was very pleasantly surprised with that number. Next one would be, I think. Yeah, we're both on the golfer here. Yeah, I think we'll go to the next one. We'll go to another, I guess, correlation in some success for Shubhanka Sharma recently, I guess, over the years, who has played well in Hong Kong, played well at elevation, played pretty trending golf right now. Sell us on Sharma.
Yeah, I mean, look, he's everything that we want to see in a golfer. He's trending in, like Morrison. He's just trending in the right directions in both departments. Like his actual current form, I think it's 32nd, 30th, 16th, 9th. So that's a great progress. 4th, 12th, and 13th in strokes gained approaches last 3 as well. Did miss the cut on his only visit here, but I think that's enough to kind of keep his price out to where we want it to be. I think if he'd have had a top 20, maybe 66 to 1, 80 to 1. So I think that really helps us. But the way he's hitting his irons is kind of, I don't even know if it's, you may be able to tell me, it's pretty better than what it was at when he was really coming to the forefront of, his very best things when he was playing well in WGC and things like that. I think that it's probably one of the best runs of his irons ever. And he's kind of putting that together with his off the tee as well. So we know what this guy is. He's won the Maybank Championship. He's won Joburg Open, which is another kind of course that links to this. He's played well in WGC's top 10 there. 7th in some big events on the European Tour, Italian Open, Turkish Airlines Open, CIMP Classic. And they say that those 2 big finishes at the Hong Kong Open, 17th at Wentworth, when he's at his game, he's a big contender. It's been a while now since that kind of first took off for him in 17 and 18, but it looks like it's returning.
Yeah, four straight events, ball striking, gaining at least a stroke per round. And like you said, those finishes are continuing to trend up. And he's built for the moment because he's been there more than a lot of golfers in this range. So excited for him. I will go into my last selection, and you mentioned golfer when comparing to James Morrison, somebody who has a long track record of a short game success, especially recently, but the rest of the game hasn't followed suit for Schwan Kim. We're going back. I think 100-1 for if I had to build somebody who is the Andres Romero type of that playoff, of kind of the build where built on short game, but even Romero now, when he kind of tees up at times, he still finds a good amount of birdies. He just has that in his bag of tricks, and nobody has been better from a weighted birdie or better rate over the last 5 weeks than Schwan Kim. I mean, he is literally, making enough birdies to win events. He's obviously making enough mistakes to not even sniff the places, realistically all that much. So, that's why we're getting a number on him. But again, everything has been driven from the short game. However, what really, I guess, hurts him more than anything is his off the tee is just not spectacular. And if we're looking at what strokes gained category we mentioned would be okay, kind of not having the best in your bag would be the off the tee metric for the week. So I couldn't leave out Schwan when I really narrowed it down, because he kind of fits that same mold of a lot of these guys we're selecting, and the number is still generous.
Yeah, and I think, like you say, I mean, it's exactly the same situation with Yates Krojcik. Was he was 28-1 last week, 66 or 60-1 this week. Schwan Kim was 50-1, now 100-1. I picked both those players last week, and I have hopped off, but because I know you're going for them and you're going to mention them, it's kind of, I don't feel so bad, right? The viewers are going to hear the same things, and it'd be redundant to keep going over the same things. But you say that it's powered by a short game. I mean, even the last two events, 10th and 33rd. In his approaches as well. So there's definitely something there. And like you say, his weaknesses is off the tee game, and that could be kind of negated here. But before we go into the kind of DraftKings, the one other sort of selection is Alexander Bjork for me. He's a guy that I look at him all the time. Like I always, and I probably am stuck in kind of, I think it was 2017 when he won. He was just someone that really, really, I just like to support. And he always kind of looked a little bit short in the betting. I think he was sort of overrated slightly towards the end of when I was looking at him. He won China in 2018, second at the British Masters. He had that run in 2017 where he had second and third. One of those being at Hong Kong, which is one of the reasons I like him here. But when you look at his course form as well, I think he's had 16th and 28th either side of the withdrawal. The withdrawal he shot at 68 before he pulled out. I can't quite remember why he pulled out now, but he was 8th and 33rd in strokes gained approach as well. And if you look at his season so far, it's been a lot of steady golf and good finishes without any real flashes of brilliance. And I just think that it's just a week they just need to put it all together, and this could really be the kind of course for him to do that.
Yeah. We found out it was back-to-back weeks almost where he was right there in the thick of things not all that long ago. Once deemed the best iron player in the world by the European Tour when he led the statistic. But yeah, a big fan of Bjork, and hopefully that can get there, because yeah, he's got mega talent. As we go down, DraftKings pricing literally just came out. So I'm going to have this pulled up here. There are a couple guys that I want to mention as we go through, but I think we'll probably we'll start at 7,100 and go down. And we'll run through a decent list of names here. So yes or no for me, okay? Marcel Siem, 7,100.
Yes.
Adrian Meronk, 7,100.
No.
No? I'm going to say yes. He played well last week.
He did. Do you think that he's the type of person that can change his approach for this, or do you think he's the one that can just kind of overpower it and make enough birdies?
He has to be the latter to contend. I don't think he can change. 7K flat, Brandon Stone.
Yes. His ball striking week was absolutely ridiculous.
Yeah, you are terrible with the one-word answers. So if we go, I'm just playing with you. Hugo
Okay,
Leon, 7K flat.
Yes.
Yep. And our boy Garrick Portillo, 6,900.
No.
I think he falls in that Moronk bucket probably as well. Matthew Southgate, 6,900.
No.
Darius Van Driel, 6,800.
Yes.
Miguel Angel Jimenez, 6,800.
No.
One more 6,800. Maverick Ancliffe.
Yes.
I knew you'd like
Yes.
that one. Man, there's some cheap ones that are very much in play.
If I say yes twice, does that count as 2 words or one?
I'll count it as one for you. Let's see. Sammy Valimaki, 6,700. He's cheap.
Yes.
That's so cheap for him. Last time winner here, Sebastian Soderberg, 6,700.
Yes.
My selection, 6,600. Clement Sordet.
Yes.
You said he had a little bit of Hong Kong.
He does. Yeah,
kind of correlation.
Hong Kong. Yeah.
He's been very hot when it comes from the short game perspective. And, if you look into kind of his trending stats, I think, again, kind of betting on something that maybe not the most predictable week to week, but top 22 finishes for him. I think that's a decent run. Laporta, 6,500.
No.
Daniel Gavin, 6,400.
No.
Bradley Dredge, 6,400.
Yeah.
Where's my guy? Here it is. Matthew Baldwin, 6,300.
Yes.
Baldwin, strokes gain approach last week, believe second of the guys that teed it up at this field. Let me check here. He was, Crocker first. Matthew Baldwin, 2.19 strokes gained per round last week after leading the ISPS as well in approach. He's somebody I think that I was very close to betting as well. But I think at 6,300, you are stealing there. Another name I'm
going to throw one to you, Scott
yes.
Henn.
I never play Scott Henn. I'm going to say no.
Throw me a
couple more.
Oliver Fisher, 6,300.
No.
Lorenzo Gagli.
What's he been doing lately? Anything?
Not a lot. No.
I like Gags.
But he's had a second place finish here.
Yeah, he almost snuck out of that playoff. Yeah, I don't mind Gagley.
Benjamin Poke.
Yes, I was gonna say him. Let me pull this up. Thank you, Tom. Okay, so Benjamin Poke over the weekend, 67, 68, 135 strokes combined, which would have been the lowest two scores on the weekend. If you look at him from a 5 or the last 54 holes, Veerman beat the field by 4 strokes, but him and Baldwin would have been tied for second at 206 strokes for those 3 rounds. So yeah, I think Poke is intriguing.
First ever top 10 European Tour last week.
He's a winner of Q School, I believe. Yeah. I'm really bummed Q School is not coming back, man. I love European Tour Q School. I think that's about as low as I can play. We don't have any random AMs for me to go for. I was really disappointed. I didn't have any. I think it was Louise Duncan. Duncan was her last name in the Open Championship. She was spectacular.
We didn't have any kind of like Swiss golf pro.
There was a couple. I mean, there was a couple AMs, that played, maybe mid AMs. I need Oscar Sanchez back in our life. But if we're talking Oscar Sanchez, I think that is a bow on our show for the week here. We've gone through a good amount of the value plays, build it out. I appreciate everything, Tom. For you, if you look into your card, review it one more time for the folks at home.
Yeah. So for me, it's Justin Harding. He was kind of like 33 and 31. I think he might be down to 28. Sean Crocker, I think it's around the 40 to 1 mark. James Morrison with you at 16, 66 to 1. Alexander Bjork about 75, 70 to 1. And Shabang Sharma again with yourself at 100 to 1.
Awesome. Guido Migliazzi, we're coming right here, 35 to 1. James Morrison, 60. Jaks Krubich, 65. Lucas Bjergaard, 100. Shamaka Sharma, 100. Shawan Season Kim, 100 to 1. Have a good week, everybody. Let's hit the board.